so I was saying, like, we're having like all these problems with like the feds and like amidst like news about like Schedule 3 marijuana. And then like Donald Trump, it's kind of weird. Like in his first term, like he had Jeff Sessions was like the attorney general, kind of wanted to ruin like the state legal cannabis markets, which was really intense for Jeff Sessions in that. Glad, this sounds better, Jacob. You're the best. Thank you. This is the thing. I am a writer. I'm just like learning about this. I gotta like learn about like trying to have like a set of my office, trying to like clean up, wear my hat and some nice clothes here. Yeah, thank you, Cosgrove. Yeah, so we're doing some interesting like analysis of this bill here. So we're definitely making progress on something. But like it definitely seems like we're gonna have like another trial hearing that they had that the DEA held under Joe Biden. That was about December 2024 now. So they said the judge from that retired, which is funny too. So it's an interesting thing. It wasn't really like a great trial, and you could see like the DEA was kind of like controlling it and controlling who could talk and like what they could say. And so it's sort of bullshit. But we also had a couple of like New Jersey attorneys there. Shout out to Cheryl Murray Powell. Nicholas K., great guy, Greek American with a unique name. Me being Dan Ulloa, I'm very sensitive about names. So it was interesting to have Jersey guys there. I think they had one of the haters, one of our enemies, the opposition to federal cannabis legalization via descheduling. David Evans is also from New Jersey. He's the opponent. It's kind of oh, that guy. That's another story, man. That's another story. But like, we do have like all this opposition, and it's really interesting to say like the nature of who could have been, for example, on the sides of like cannabis politics. There's a lot going on. Hey, now, Milnick3, I appreciate that. We're good. So it's interesting because we have like a lot of moderate Democrats and like people who don't really like cannabis, or like they say they like it. A lot of progressives say they like it and they'll champion it, but then it becomes complicated and then they don't give a flying fuck, or people care about a lot. There's a lot going on in life. Housing, gentrification, fascism. This is like the thing about Donald Trump. A lot of people don't like Donald Trump. If you're like a person who's like on the progressive side of this, you do not like Donald Trump. He seems very pro-cop, against like the Black Lives Matter movement. The catch about like legalization in Jersey is we were sort of hit like a windtail in COVID in 2020 when like George Floyd was tragically died, and then it was like there was like a great wellspring in society for like social justice in general. The cannabis of social justice was like an easy something they could do. We're working on it. There's people like who got like papers, PDFs, talking to politicians. And now, we're in like sort of like the backlash year under Trump. We've been under this backlash year, for a couple of years now. And, that's always like a hell of a thing as well. So it's interesting to see like what happens. We have the progressive Democrats on the one side. We have these kind of like libertarian Republicans on the other side. And it's kind of like we have craft cannabis on one side. We have our independents, our local guys, our women-owned companies, our veteran-owned companies, Hispanic-owned, Black-owned, Asian-owned. Very important issues to have like a market like of Jersey in cannabis that reflects our market. And, we made a lot of progress. It's hard to get in. You need a good $500,000 and to be like have it be like your second business as a serial entrepreneur. But we've definitely made progress. So that's the other thing. Like that's a good segue now to the NJ Cannabis Regulatory Commission meeting. So the big issue here now is we have a new Cannabis Regulatory Commission chair. So it was really interesting that like Diana Wainer had kind of been at the forefront leading like in New Jersey cannabis for a good while now. Probably since 2019, 2018, perhaps even. It's the whole thing about like cannabis in Jersey and like Jersey in general is like the governor of New Jersey has so much fucking power. Oh my God. I was reading about like cannabis, about like what like kind of like cannabis, like medical cannabis programs started in like Western states under like more liberal progressive people than Chris Christie. Very different than here. Like when we had like these like MSOs, this limited market like begrudgingly put into place that allowed these MSOs to take power. But then it was something like we were still making progress, I guess. Shout out to Jay Lassiter. I remember he covered the now closed, first ever dispensary in New Jersey, in Montclair. Yeah, that's a real story. Bought by an MSO and closed by an MSO called Ascend. So it was a hell of a thing. Maybe they didn't think they were making money. Montclair is a nice town. I was living in Montclair, very close to that dispensary, for example. I still live in Essex County, that way, but more the suburbs, so. Yeah, so like I was saying about Diana Wayne, who's been at the forefront of this, she was lead counsel for the ACLU, the American Civil Liberty Union, and their New Jersey chapter office, working on cannabis legalization. Once Phil Murphy became governor after Chris Christie, and there was this great wellspring for reform. And it was really interesting seeing this. I got into this. I'd say spring 2019, after doing other stuff on other issues and being a freelance writer. So Wayne was leading the campaign then, and at one point she then took a job in the Murphy administration to be their point person. It's an interesting issue, for example, Tennessee. So she was leading it and was leading on the legislative front, I believe, and then she became the first chair of the CRC in spring 2021. And now here in spring 2026, she has stepped down, and Harris Law Firm is the new CRC chair. So Harris Law Firm was working for now New Jersey Senate President Nick Scutari, Democrat, from the 22nd District in Union County. And maybe a little in Somerset. So Nick Scutari is an interesting guy. He's ultimately came around to, and the bill that he championed, pushed, included the provisions for, social equity that we wanted. Now, I've been at the forefront of this. You see, I'm Peruvian. You see there's a brown shield behind me. I believe that actually has the coat of arms of Peru. It's a very detailed coat of arms, and this is a humble camera. So I'm Peruvian on my dad's side. That's why I have a unique last name, Ulloa. It's supposed to be Ulloa in Spanish. Eso es un ocho cuenta. It's no story, man. So I was at the forefront of this as on the board of the Latino Action Network, and we did have to push for more inclusion. For example, after it seemed the week after the bill, Scutari was yes, let's get it through. And we're hold up. I don't know if we like that last bill. See, every bill, we learn, we have experimentations in the market, and we make progress. They say Illinois copied New Jersey's bill under Scutari at one point. That they were pushing before COVID. But then now we see, in Illinois, we're seeing a lot of the same problems with MSOs, I hear, for example. So we were trying to put in, more conditions and, things to, fix these things, fix these problems. Conditional licenses was one of them. They were supposed to be prioritized. I don't know if they were. And that's been, a big issue. It's don't get it. If you can't get property and you can't get town approval, then you might as well not have a license. Unfortunately, it was the attitude of a lot of towns and landlords to our conditional license winners. They awarded so many, it was very difficult. Cannabis should be a very lucrative market with a lot of business people, but the way they have it under federal marijuana prohibition and the way they always have it, it's very difficult. Yeah, so I was saying, Scutari ultimately championed and says he always championed a diverse, inclusive market. However, he's always hated home gardening. Better known as home grow, but they always say companies and hustlers grow. Underground legacy operators grow. They do not garden. A garden, by its very nature, is a more quaint thing, it's small, it's humble. So that's why it's home gardening now in Heady NJ. Scutari fucking hates it, and we haven't really, it's difficult, and we've made progress pushing a bill and getting people to really understand this And there's like a great coalition. Like I'm part of it, but I'm certainly not leading it. We have so many great leaders. Shout out to, Chris Goldstein, Kristen Cody, Evan Neeson, of course, Andrea Rabel, forefront up there. And we got like a lot of great guys that have like really endorsed it like in the industry, and it's really great to like know and like a lot of them. Shout out to Honey Grove, Big Dave, and Jeff. Shout out to my boy Aslan of Jersey Smooth Manufacturer. Honey Grove's got a dispensary in South Jersey and Metuchen, and then they just won for Elmwood Park. So I'm sure they're having a good day. And we also have, Jesse and Cord of Baked by the River in Lambertville, been a big part of the coalition, part of the industry endorsing this. Marta Figaro, great hustler there, Black American. He's got drinks now after so many cookies and brownies. It's insane. We made progress there, and it's wild. It's taking a long time. It is 2026 AD. Like the fucking future with AD. AI rather. Yeah, so this is always like the interesting thing about like Harris and trying to understand like the nature of how this will go. Like they kind of like have fined like a big episode at the last meeting. This meeting they just had like a lot of like penny fines. And like I guess like this is like the thing about the CRC is like we want them, and like I know the base, the faithful, the heads, the heady heads, like really love the idea of like funding the MSOs a lot of times, but sometimes like they find hashery, Drino Oasis, and Cream. And those really are not like the big guys the way we see like Verano, Curaleaf with labor issues, And it's difficult sometimes because like maybe it's like, you hit me on a slap on the wrist for some petty anti bullshit. Whereas it's like some jerk off, so it's really difficult. Or it's like, people make honest mistakes. It's hard to admit you admit mistakes for a lot of people. I may or may not be one of them. So yeah, so we'll see what happens under Harris Loffer. He seems like a good guy. He seems like he likes the idea of championing this market. He's an interesting guy. He's also the mayor of Springfield, New Jersey. Springfield's sort of like a swing town. It's a very, nice town that way. I gotta learn more about it, perhaps. So we'll see how this goes. So he was at like Wiscutari working for him during that whole Crema position when they were pushing it in the legislature. Diana was pushing it from the governor's office. And I was part of the coalition pushing it, I guess, as an advocate, grassroots advocates. Boy, do we have a coalition. What a time, man. We had so many people, we had, business people, we had lobbyists. We had, shout out to Lynn Novak. We had, Bo Hutch, we had like a Republican lobbyist. We had Bill Caruso, big South Jersey Democratic guy, has always been for it, and, an interesting guy to talk to. Lou Magadas is always an interesting guy. We had a coalition, we had Reverend Charles Boyer, and it'd be great to get the Reverend Charles Boyer to endorse home gardening. Reverend Boyer, moved as really solid cannabis as a social justice issue, and then the bill passed where we decriminalized, and he's like, great, peace. There's other issues here on the social justice realm versus a bunch of businesses and hustling. Homegrown really, if you think about it, like who would get like a felony, it's liable to be like somebody who's like Hispanic or black. There haven't been a lot of stories of too many busts. We had a couple of busts, at Heady NJ. Saw that a man named Phil was hurt in South Jersey. We championed that. We were able to like really connect him with like a guy, and like God bless Phil, is doing so much. Yeah, so is a hell of a thing, trying to garden your own plant, great, get your own plant. They say it's hard, actually. And most people would get fed the fuck up. Like, I'm not really, I may not so bad, I'm not much one for a green thumb, so. Interesting times in this era. They had a safe tax hearing, but then they didn't really, like, discuss raising it. There's, like, all the idea of, like, money to help with these social justice programs. And that's a big issue with like the nature of life and money. Cause like when we were at the forefront of the Crema advocates, we kind of understood like money, like if we could get the money from the adult use market, we could fund programs, but then like you had to get the market up and then you needed the MSOs and we had to make deals. And Jersey's a hell of a place, man. And you try to make progress where you can. And like we have made progress. Like I do have like some good companies, like local guys. A lot of people have been open like now in 2026, but then like I know a lot of people that I haven't seen and talked to that like we're having a lot of difficulties, and I can just imagine where they are in the process. So yeah, crazy times. We'll see how things are going with like the CRC, the nature of what they do, finding companies, regulating the market. We kind of need like legislative change for like a lot of these things, and it's really difficult. For example, like the CRC always says they can't do anything with the legislature. Like Harris Lawfer, like probably is still in contact with Nick Scutari to go lobby him on gardening. But you know, like people have been doing that. They bring up the home grow issue, the CRC at the CRC meetings. The CRC is like, we can't do anything. Sorry. So we have gotten a lot of like sponsors though. We have like shout out to a lot of people. You know, we have Bingo Paul Monmouth, you know, Troy Singleton, Democrats, Burlington been championing it. You know, and now we have like a lot of people on the medical bill. You know, we have Republicans, Declan O'Scanlan of Monmouth County. We have Tony Bucco of Morris County. We have Gordon Johnson of Bergen County. We have Nilsa Cruz Perez of South Jersey. I believe Camden. I'm from Central Jersey. North don't hate. You know, we got Andrew Zwicker of Central Jersey. You know, we have Patrick Dagnan, hometown representative, state senator. Shout out to Pat Dagnan. So, like, we have made, like, a lot of progress on this. Robert Singer is a Republican from somewhere. You know, like, I'm really glad we have his support. God bless him. Because this is how we make progress. And we have Verlina Reynolds Jackson, I believe, is pushing it in the Assembly. She's also run for Congress to represent the 12th Congressional District in a very crowded field that includes Plainfield Mayor Adrian Mapp. He is the husband of Commissioner Amelia Mapp. And they're in Union County, close to Scutari. You know, we have my hometown mayor, Brad Cohen's running for Congress. East Brunswick has smoke shops but not dispensaries. You know, we have Chanel Robinson is getting like a lot of support out of Somerset County. So we'll see what happens there. You know, we actually had a recent race here in the 11th Congressional District where I live. Ana Lilia Mejia is now a congresswoman. I used to know her because before I was big into cannabis, I was a leader in the 15 an hour coalition. That was a lifetime ago. I wasn't very successful then. I didn't have this great office. I was a far more humble freelance writer, you know, more partisan and political guy that way, and was trying like my best and to like advocate in the state house for that. But then that was difficult, and I pivoted more into writing and journalism and cannabis, and here we are. Life is wild sometimes, man. So Ana Lily, the congresswoman, hasn't really talked about cannabis while she was on the campaign trail. A lot of people on the campaign trail I knew as well had really good positions on that. Commissioner Brendan Gale of Essex County, for example. John Bartlett is also commissioner from Passaic County, was like for it. For example, we had the then former Lieutenant Governor Tanisha Way for descheduling. You know, so a lot of people were like for it, like a couple, so that way a couple people didn't like comment. This guy Justin Strickland thinks he's running for Congress against Ana Lilia. It's like really amusing. A lot of people talking about Ana Lilia in foreign affairs, Jews. I'm Jewish. I don't think she's an anti-Semite, and I don't fucking like a foreign affairs. Jersey might have a culture of corruption, but it's sort of small in that way. It's sort of compact. Get like from one end to the other in a couple hours. And we made a lot of progress in Jersey under Governor Phil Murphy. You know, I was all for Governor Shell. She hasn't said much on cannabis. Her Attorney General Jennifer Davenport is leading a lawsuit, actually. It's a story I've been working on about this Curaleaf lawsuit fighting the labor union. It's a big issue, Heady NJ, shout out to my boy Hugh Giordano. Owes me a phone call from the UFCW Labor Union, Local 360.